Can I kick it? Yes, you can. Can I kick it? Yes, you can.
Well, apparently she can kick it. Oh, yeah. Yes, she can.
Yep.
Okay. Podcast, and a little special edition here. Talk about our thoughts and brief about the new Daredevil series that just premiered on Netflix. Of course, when something premieres on Netflix, it pretty much you get the whole season all at once, which is pretty awesome. It means you can binge watch, which you don't do unless there's like a whole series that appears at once on Netflix. Now, do you? No, you've never stayed up all night watching episodes of Star Trek that you saw years ago, or Twilight Zone. Because somebody on Twitter said, "Oh, I watched the episode last night."
I just listening to our One More Rewrite podcast, and we told you to listen to watch more Twilight Zone, and that it was available on Netflix, and you should watch the entire series.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't do that. No, I'd say you didn't just binge watch all of Mad Men in anticipation for the new season, and it's almost over now, and the new season of Game of Thrones is just starting, and I'm sure you didn't binge watch all of the previous seasons one more time to make sure you were all caught up.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen.
No.
In
any case, if you are going to binge watch something, so there is Daredevil now on Netflix, which is I've seen 2 episodes. Lunchbox has seen 3 at this point, and I'm sure I'm going to watch it all because I was engaged and intrigued enough by it.
Yeah.
I don't know quite how to start it off. It's awesome that it's not starting off with an origin story first, and foremost.
Well, it kind of does.
A little bit, but it's not heavy of it.
Yeah, there are 2 minutes at the beginning.
2 minutes at the beginning. And that was great because it tells you everything you need to know without weird build-up, just like the kid is already on the ground, has been splashed with the radioactive fluid in his eyes.
Toxic chemicals or whatever it is.
The magic
he's not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
He's not
toxic waste.
Toxic waste. It already starts on the ground, splashed in the face with toxic waste that gives him his special hearing, smelling, and whatnot abilities that he has, but blinds him. So, and that was great. I think that's good because it makes it starts it in a very actiony way. It moves the plot, the idea forward. Right. It gets you a very basics of where the character comes from without spending 20 minutes of meandering dribble on I'm going to go for a bike ride, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You have the scene in action already going. That's great.
Right. There's an old Hollywood saying, what is it?
Make good movies.
Cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase, yes.
You don't need the build-up. The origin story is always so boring. I don't care, whatever. Get over it. And I'm glad that they didn't, do the, I'm going for a bike ride, Dad. Oh, look, that person's about to get hit by the toxic chemical truck. Push. Ah!
Yeah, really.
I don't need to see that. I don't care. Nobody else does.
No.
But watch after a couple episodes, I'm sure that you noticed they do flashbacks.
Which work really well.
And they do. And it gives context to the story that they're telling. In the one sense, because they're, going out and, you've got Matt and Foggy are out trying to be lawyers and doing them some lawyering. Yeah. But you also have the flashbacks that kind of give a little bit of context to what's going on and how Matt is feeling about what's going on. So there's that. I mean, kind of like Psych did, where they flash back to the little bit where he's a kid, and it kind of informs more about what's going on in the current episode. Yeah. So I like that, is that we didn't need the full origin story because we're going to get it as it goes along. And I think it's in the first episode where she asks him about how he got blind and, what happened and how he feels about it. And you kind of get the full story that you need.
Yeah.
In that little 5-minute exchange about how he feels about how he's became blind and whether or not, and the questions that everybody would automatically ask.
Yeah.
And how do you comb your hair?
And it's great. And it's truncated into like a little 5-minute exchange. He has that wonderful line about like how sometimes he really misses the sky.
Yeah.
And you've got a sentimental moment in there, and it's not crammed. It doesn't feel crammed in. It feels like a natural conversation.
It really does. And that's, I thought they did that
without
really
him
well.
having spaced out how necessary. Like, what were they doing? Well, his character was kind of going and tilting his head and doing the kind of Scrubs JD thing where you're like, and this
where did you just go?
Where did you just go? Like, no, actually, my favorite was that, dude, are you okay? You were gone a really long time. Like, yeah, it didn't have some kind of unnecessarily long flashbacks. There are in there.
There are flashbacks in there, but they kind of work within the context of it. And I did really like that moment, which I think is episode 1, where he's talking to the girl.
Yeah.
About like how I wasn't blind. I haven't been blind my whole life, and I missed the sky, and that little humorous moment of like, how do you comb your hair? It's like, well, you just hope for the best.
Yeah.
I think that it's a nice moment, and I think it works, and kind of gives you the answers to all of those questions that, let's be honest, you meet a blind person and you're talking to them and you're kind of friends, those are the questions you'd ask.
Yeah.
It's like, so it seemed very real.
Yeah.
For that, of like, but have you been blind your whole life? Like, how do you make sure your hair's combed right? Like just those kind of like questions, the weird questions that pop into your head. I think made it seem very real.
Yeah.
And I really liked that about it. I thought that, and it kind of compressed kind of who he is a little bit into that too. Kind of gave you a lot more insight into who he is and how he sees the world in a very compact kind of way. And I liked that. I thought it actually worked really well.
Yeah. Let's give just for, sake of argument that people haven't heard or know the premise of Daredevil. And
is there somebody?
Is there somebody?
You did not watch the Ben Affleck movie?
Yeah, well, really funny. I've got an aside about that too. But, okay, basic premise. This kid, he saves a guy from being... Kid on a bicycle, saves some other guy, an old guy, from being hit by a truck that, lo and behold, was filled with toxic waste. Toxic waste splashes in his eyes. The kid goes blind. His dad is a boxer.
Yep.
And his dad kind of teaches him that he needs to be tough, but he also needs to be smart, that he doesn't want to end up like him. He doesn't want his son to end up like him, being like just a roughneck nobody.
Palooka.
A palooka, thank you. He doesn't want him to be a palooka. He doesn't want him to be a schmuck. Yeah. He wants him to be something. So he says, like, okay...
Could have been a contender.
Could have been a contender. He wants him to be a smart kid. He knows his kid's smart, and he wants to capitalize on that. Along the way, you should be seeing the movie... You should have seen the first 2 episodes by now. And if not, you've already seen the movie by now. And if you haven't seen the movie, you haven't seen that, you haven't caught up on a little bit of the comic book, then either turn off this podcast special right now or just ignore it, because it's impossible to proceed without giving a little bit away.
Right. Good night, Dad.
Good night, Dad. Okay, 1 for our dad, 2, 3. You've been warned. Okay, so in a series of flashbacks, his dad, basically, he shows his dad has been paid off or encouraged to throw off a fight. Like, it'd been set up with this major championship fight that he wouldn't normally get a shot at.
Take a dive, as it were.
And he gets paid to take a dive. His kid, who now has these super hearing abilities, thanks to the toxic waste spill thing, hears it, and he really doesn't want to see his dad do that, but never lets on, which is also good, that he's overheard this. But he kind of nudges his dad in a very kind of way. It's like, we always, whatever happens, we're Murdochs. We get back up after we're knocked down.
Right.
And, his dad takes that to heart, and then he can't go through with it, but he knows what's going to happen to him afterwards.
Right.
He puts all of his money on himself and wins the fight, and there's a really great emotional scene where, like I said, I get to hear my name cheered at least just once.
Yeah.
And then, flash cut, and next thing you know, like, the guy's been shot, he's dead, he loses his dad. But this is all told in flashback. This is what's really, I think, good about the series so far. What I've seen with the first few episodes is that you don't have everything I just described to you put up front. Yeah, it's like, and here's your extended backstory. They've done a
It's
marvelous...
not the first 3 episodes is the backstory.
Not 3 episodes with the backstory with the kid, with the interactions with his dad who's a palooka who gets paid to take time. No. It's intercut in the first 2 episodes and done in a way that makes sense with the show itself, with the actual plot line that's going on at the time, and makes it feel like a more, again, we go back to what we talked about earlier, natural way in which the character thinks and what's going through his mind when something happens.
Right, and which is more like the way that like people think of like, oh, this thing that happened to me and now this.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're not like totally conscious of what you're thinking, you know, like, oh, that girl rejected me last time I tried to go up to a girl and talk to her, and now I'm not going to do that. And maybe if I'm, you know, watching a movie, I'll watch, you know, the guy like half stand up and then flashback to the girl that rejected him, and then he sits back down.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like he totally remembers that, but that kind of informs his decision.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it feels like more like that, of like, this is not necessarily he's thinking about this, but this is what's informing what's going on right now.
Yeah. That's what has built the character of the person into what they are. Not that, like, they're suddenly having a moment where, like, they're totally lost in another world of the time that they were rejected and laughed at and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then they
never got laughed at.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, moving on. The first 2 episodes, at least that I've seen, which are good as character setup for him and his law office partner and the woman who becomes their secretary.
Yeah.
And it also sets up a little bit. It doesn't lay it on heavy. It sets up a little bit of the fact that there's a crime syndicate, several crime syndicates networked together within the city, and that they're efficient at cleaning up when this new masked contender comes on the scene. Also good that he didn't come out sporting spandex and tights and everything right off the get-go, that he's built his costume.
Right, and, you know, and that's, I was kind of wondering about that because, you know, having gotten through, you know, the 3rd episode, I'm like, I wonder how they're going to get him into the costume. You know, like, starting to wonder, like, what their mechanism is going to be of, like, how they're going to convince him. Because he doesn't have, like, an Alfred or anybody like that, really.
Yeah.
That's going to go, here's your super bionic outfit that you need.
Well, it's not really a super bionic outfit that he wears. Like, it's just an outfit.
Well, right, but it is, because he's got the horns that actually help amplify everything.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so, well, at least from my understanding. So, maybe they're not going to do that in this, of like some special, you know, additional thing. Because it seems like, from what I've seen, he already has those special powers. So he can kind of do that. He can hear the ticking of somebody's Cartier watch.
Yeah.
You know, and so you kind of sense that he already has those heightened abilities at the beginning and doesn't need any additional hardware. But who's going to get him to wear the goofy red? I mean, who's going to get him into the costume? Who's going to convince him that he needs to have this special costume, and how? And are they going to do it sometime during this series, or are we going to wait for the next series?
Yeah,
like, do we have to wait for season 2?
I don't know.
Or is like the final image of season 1 him putting on the Batcape? You know, I think, so to speak. You know, like, and you kind of, like, I kind of see that might be where it's going. Although I really dig the black outfit, I think it kind of really works. In the context, like, thus far, I think that, the black outfit is really good for him. But at some point, we got to get him into the Daredevil outfit.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right, wondering how we're going to do it.
I don't know, but I think that you're right in the, it might be a slow build-up thing that not until the end of the season, it might even be the final shot of the season, who knows. But the way that they're going so far, let's just stick to the first 2 because that's what I've seen. Okay. And I am interested in watching more.
I've tried not to mention anything about the other ones.
No, but I figured, and I'd heard that he doesn't get into the costume for a while. That's what all I've heard so far is something about, like, he's not in the costume right at the start.
Right, okay. Yeah, which we know.
Which we know. Okay. Let's hit some highlights and, I don't want to say lowlights, but some things I think were working for it and some things that weren't quite. some things that we're really working for. Again, we've mentioned the flashbacks; those are great.
Yeah.
The way that they intersperse those feel natural. The dialogue between the characters feels natural. There's points where the lady who's their first case, who becomes their secretary within that episode, and the second one there is the interactions are natural. Like, she's kind of anxious, nervous because she's scared and frightened that she might be knocked off by the mob for what she knows, and she's talking to his character, and she does natural things. Like she nods nervously, and he sits there for a beat and says, like, "You nodded, didn't you?" Like, okay. Yeah. She's like, "Yeah." And those, again, if they feel natural, they don't feel like this forced, like, he's blind. Yeah. It's just sort of like she does it, and you do it to her, like, okay. And then you're sitting there wondering what's happening. Oh yeah. Oh shoot. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I like that they do seem like natural interactions.
They seem like natural interactions.
And things like you would expect somebody to do, like, nod to somebody who's blind and then not realize that they didn't just see you nod.
What's great about it, too, is that it takes you a second, too. Yeah. I think they play it just right. And don't follow it up at just the right speed. Not too slow, but not too quick either. So you're like, okay, yeah. Whoops. I nodded, too.
It's like, no, you don't. No, you didn't see that. Okay. And then the split second later you go, yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay. And playing to that natural, one other thing I want to mention briefly is the fact that the fight scene that closes the second... I've seen a lot of people talking about the fight scene that closes the second episode is great, because not only you have this, like, long shot of the hallway of him bashing people and throwing people in the rooms and such. What's really great, besides the action, is the way it happens. And I don't just mean the furniture flying around and then the cool way he picks up stuff, hits it, and kind of uses his abilities. Not in an over-top way like the movie did. I could see if I hear noise, it's almost like I'm not blind anyway. Yeah. But it feels like something a blind person would be able to do if they had, like, slightly heightened sense. Not super senses. Yeah. But heightened senses. And not only that, but he was tired. Him and the villains were tired. They were fighting, but they were tired. And I had that sense of, like, they've been knocking the living garbage, whatever. They've been knocking each other around. And they're getting up slowly. He's getting up slowly, too. Granted, this is after him having been in, like, a knife fight or something before. Right. But still, the fact that he's not just rebounding. He's not Batman, which I like Batman, okay. But still... He's not rolling these punches off like Superman. He's not Superman. That's better analogy. Yeah. He's not Superman and throwing these punches aside like they're nothing. Like he's worn down. The bad guys he's beating are worn down. They're still trying to fight him, but they're worn down too. And I think that works great not only in the realistic sense, but it also goes back to stuff like the themes that they're playing on with like we get knocked down, but we keep getting up again. Yeah. Like he's fighting through it. And you get that feeling that he's actually fighting through pain and fighting through, like, I'm going to keep going. I'm just got to keep going. And it sells it well. A lot better than Ben Affleck's movie.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And one of the things that I actually really love about the things is, like, when I'm watching it of, like, wow, this guy isn't really that good of a fighter. And was my first thought in my head because I'm so used to seeing superhuman fighting off the villains. Yeah. You know, you're so used to just boom, 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 flying villains.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't make a difference. Like, everyone...
Right, yeah, like, oh, nobody can touch me. Boom, boom, boom.
Not cannon fodder, arm fodder, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like tossing them away. Yeah. And I'm like, isn't he supposed to be like super fighter and just, woo, you go away now? But he actually, like, is in the fight with them. And I was watching, like, one of the fights, and I was like, wow, he's just really getting beat around here. Like, but it's like he's actually in a fight. Like a real guy that's actually in a fight. Yeah. You know, and, you know, he's fighting these people that are, like, elite fighters. You know, like these people that, you know, supposedly the people he's fighting, like, know how to fight and can, like, beat people up. So you have these incredible, like, really excellently choreographed, like, fights, but he's not the superhuman guy that's just like doing the Batman fist of like you just throw up your fist behind you and the guy falls over.
Yeah,
you know,
he's
like
not casually knocking people aside and like rolling off nothing and whatever. Right. It hurts him.
Yeah,
he may not have like these fantastic fighting skills, but he's doing the best he can, and you get that in every scene.
Right, like he punches the guy, and you see him do that half second of like, ow, punching a guy in the head hurts, you know, and you see that it's like it's not long enough. They don't pause on it.
Yeah, it's not
they don't like dwell on it or anything. It's not played up for comedic. It's just like that little like squeeze your hand of like,
shake your fist.
Ow, that hurt a little.
And then you move on, but
but nobody calls attention to it. There's no close up on him doing that little move of like shaking his hand out after hitting somebody. It's just like it's played very small, and like if you weren't paying attention, you didn't see him do that.
Yeah,
that hurt. It's I think the best way to play it. It's really great that he punches the guy and you see the little shake of the hand of like, wow, that hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that he's like really made him into a very human character.
Well, anything else you have? Like I've already said I have as far as the highlights go is I think that there's a realism there that doesn't feel like quote unquote realism, but unnaturalness to it. I think the side characters are pretty well done. They again, there's a very realistic without we're going for quote unquote realistic here.
Yeah.
And on a last note, as far as the highlights go, is I felt more of an emotional connection to him and his father in the little brief scenes. I'm sure, all mashed together. They're probably only like 5-6 minutes, but there's more emotional attachment there. Excuse me. Than there was in the film.
Yeah.
And his dad was in like the first 20-30 minutes of that, or so. The origin half of the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's really put together of like where you kind of feel like he and his dad kind of have that connection.
Yeah.
And they really, connect with each other, and it's really
there's like the moments where he has his kid put his hands on the face post fight, and like it's a little bit like because you see like blood dripping down.
Yeah,
but it's
the
like,
little blood drip on the edge of the table, and you're like.
But it's a good cinematic moment, and it's a good moment too because it's again with film or television. It's a visual medium. He's not just telling him like study in school. It's like here, feel my face, and they don't say like he isn't ramble on about see all these cuts, feel this, do that, whatnot. It's feel my face and know that you do not want any part of this kind of life.
Right.
All truncated into just like 5 seconds of him feeling his dad's face and genuine like seeming of sadness for him. But those are my highlights. How about you?
Yeah, well, no, really, I just can't agree more with what you've said. I mean, I think that it's actually seems like really well put together. I love the flashbacks, kind of like revealing more about who he is as a person, and that he fights in a more realistic way instead of just being the Batman.
The Batman, the
and just
Daredevil.
Boom, boom, boom. Hey, fly away now. And, and bad guys go flying as he walks down the street,
Yeah.
It's just without him having to put forth any effort. He really seems like he's got to put forth the effort. And he definitely gets hurt. And they show that he is hurt when he's trying to do this. It just seems like it's something that he needs to do.
Yeah.
He needs to try and save these people, but he's got to try and fight. And in that fighting, now certainly he's very good at it, but he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And he gets beat up and stabbed and shot.
If you look at the photo that they have for the icon on Netflix, it's something I hadn't noticed till the second time I looked. Is he's sitting there, he's got a little half smirk thing, and he's got the red tinted glasses, given that faint, red Daredevil character. But he has like a slight cut above his eye, and the other thing is his knuckles are super red. So you get that kind of vague, like, he's getting hurt. It's not just, excuse me, it's not just him going out and being the Batman or Superman. He's going out and doing his thing. Now, as far as lowlights or things that didn't work quite as well, I've got a couple, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say first because I only actually have, I'd say, 2 complaints.
I'm actually like I hadn't really thought about what I really didn't like. So
okay,
so what'd you have?
Maybe not didn't like, but just sort of like, okay, well, this is early and not too much to worry about. The only parts that were kind of iffy on me were Rosario Dawson's character of being a nurse there who's helping him out after the stabbing. It's like he drags up one of the Russian thugs to the roof to get info out of him. I have a hard time buying that she would tell him where to hurt the guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
a little bit.
I could see that. Yeah, it's like that she wasn't far enough along.
She wasn't far enough along in a relationship with him to be able to like just say cut him here to cause maximum pain.
Yeah, and I can see that.
That kind of bugged me a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, not major complaints. And the other was one that actually my wife had pointed out. She had said, because she had seen a number of these movies and setups and such.
Yeah.
Was she thought it was unnecessary to show, and I kind of agreed with her after I thought about it, to show the bad guy showing the daughter. When they're threatening you have that scene where the guy is being threatened, basically like, either you do this job for us, or something awful will happen to your daughter. And she said, I've seen enough of these that I think that it'd be better if they just said it. Like if they just said, or if they really want to sell it in some way, maybe punch the guy and slap him around and then say, and then next time we're going to do this and worse to your daughter. Because showing the guy standing there and, oh, see, we can contact your daughter and we know where she is. It's like, well, we know where people
call your daughter.
We know where.
Talks to her.
Yeah, and he talks to her. And she said, she'd said, I've seen this so many times. It's just old to me and it's kind of boring. So she was glad the rest of the series was different because it's a trope she's seen a lot with superhero type stuff and whatnot.
Right.
And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, and I can also see it's a bit, how do I say it? It's almost outdated at this point because I don't know how to put it then. In a society where we share selfies and at the flick of a button can say at mall or at Santa's yogurt shop or whatever with the press of a button to say, we know where your daughter is. It's sort of like, well, yeah, everybody knows where she is. She just updated her Facebook 5 minutes ago. She's at the mall.
And see, but I think that's part of why it worked was not just that we have the camera on her, which you see all the time.
Yeah.
It was that they had him call her, and so he's watching the video of her talking to him, so he knows it's happening in real time. And then they pan over and they say, see this guy, he's the guy that's going to kill your daughter, essentially. And that he says, give us a wave. So he knows that that's the guy that can do it. And it's not just we're panning over to some guy.
Well, yeah, but I would still take the threat seriously. I mean, like, this is...
Well, I'm sure you would, but I'm saying that within the context of it, I liked that they did all of those, because it is total proof that this is what is happening right now.
Okay. And not just like we're saying that we're going to...
Yeah, it's not just we're saying, it's not just George Clooney and Out of Sight saying, you see your man over there, and pretending, which is awesome in the movie. But it's not just saying this guy, that guy over there is going to be the one to kill you. It's that guy over there is going to be the one to kill you. Wave at him, and he gives him the little wave. You know, it is the proof all the way along the line, which I don't think you've seen. I think you've seen the, hey, we have a shot of your daughter, and she's in some, concrete cell. We don't know where that is. We don't know who that is. We don't know who's taking charge of her. Oh, hey, this is a shot of your daughter walking across the boardwalk. We can shoot her anytime. But you don't have that super confirmation. That's like ultimate confirmation.
Again, it's not a major complaint. My wife has seen more of these kind of movies and setups. Mm-hmm. Maybe not just superhero movies, but other like the thriller type things where they do this. So it's entirely possible that she's seen this exact setup before, because she said she's seen this like almost exact setup before, and she did actually also mention that, oh, and there's the killer, and he gives the wave, and for me it was kind of new, but at the same time I had seen the similar, and we're going to do
Right, and you do see that. You see a similar thing. I like that they did the levels, and I was going along with them for that.
Okay. That's about as far as I know for the series.
As far as we're going so far, we may revisit it later.
But I would say it's certainly worth your time at this point.
Definitely.
It's
so far, a couple episodes in.
It's pretty
Seems
good.
like it's pretty good. Yeah,
they didn't drop the ball.
Yeah,
they lived up and beyond expectations.
Yeah, definitely pretty good.
Thanks for joining us for this special episode here. We'll see you next time on the One More Rewrite podcast.